Hi there. In this episode, buyer's remorse. Have you ever bought some studio gear only to regret it? Sometimes it's instant regret. Sometimes it takes a while, but it still makes you feel badly. This is a top 11 list of items I regret buying or trading. I believe I'm careful. I read the specs, I watch the reviews, but still I've made a few bad purchases. And here they are. At number 11, Focusrite Twin Track Platinum. This is a dual channel preamp with optical compression. I purchased this item reconditioned. It might have been factory reconditioned. It's about a decade ago now, so I don't remember. Almost from day one, it was giving me issues intermittently. It's my fault. I should have returned it during the 30-day return window, but I was busy working on projects, so I'm stuck with it. When it works, it's actually quite good. When it works. At number 10, Alesis DM5. This is a rack mount drum module. I purchased it long before I had any appreciable number of percussion sample libraries. It's not a bad unit. It was reliable in that it sat in my rack for several years and then I sold it without using it on a single composition. Perhaps that should be an episode entitled, "Don't Buy Gear You Don't Need or Will Never Use." It presents an important aspect of this episode. There are many reasons why a purchase can be bad for you. An item can perform well, but it's just wrong for you, your workflow, the type of music you write, etc. Or it can be unreliable, noisy, a poor performer. It just goes to show that even when you do your due diligence by reading the specs and watching the reviews, flaws that are important to you may not be revealed. At number 9, Korg M3R. This is a Rompler baby sister to the Korg M1. Companies tend to offer musicians different levels of functionality on a line of gear at different price points, and this is true of the M3R. For example, the DX7 was the full-fledged 6-operator FM synth of the 80s. If you purchased a DX9, you are probably not as happy. I purchased the M3R and quickly returned it and purchased an M1R so I could get the functionality of an M1 in a rack mount package. Number 8, Roland MT32. About 20 years ago, I actually traded a Yamaha TX7 for 2 of them. The other guy got the better deal. This is a tabletop module that uses a stripped-down version of LA synthesis. It was my way of trying to get Roland D50 type sounds for less money than a D50. One of the units died within about a year. I sold the other one or gave it away. I don't remember. I ended up buying 2 Roland D550s some years later, which are a D50 and a rack mount package and are significantly better. I still own one, though it needs repair. Number 7, BBE 422 Sonic Maximizer. It's a Sonic Maximizer. If you don't know, these units claim to add additional harmonics, distortion, and noise to whatever you pump through them. If you're sending a mix through the device, the claim is it will make your mix sound better. I'm not a fan of these devices. To me, they just sound like some type of EQ. I used mine over a period of several years, then sold it. I never used it on any of my final mixes. As my mixing skills got better, my mixes sounded better, but this device never helped. Some people swear by them. I know that some guitar players really like them. Number 6, Roland Depth 3. This is a rack mount digital effects processor. Once again, this was a cheaper sibling to the Roland Depth 5. I owned it for a weekend and I returned it and got a Depth 5. The Depth 3 was a well-made unit, it just didn't have the functionality of a Depth 5. I used the DEP 5 for several years, and then it sat in my rack for a decade or more after I'd purchased Lexicon multi-effects processors. I gave it to a friend and he stored it in a closet for a decade. I recently had him return it to me, and now I run my Akai AX80 through it. Number 5. Yamaha TX16W. This is a 12-bit sampler from the late 80s. I already had a Roland S550, and the Yamaha had better audio and memory specs. Unfortunately, it also had an operating system programmed by a dyslexic hamster, which made it infuriating to use. I sold it before a public domain OS called Typhoon came out. It is widely held that the Typhoon OS made the TX16W much more user-friendly. I still have all the factory floppy disks, but I see no reason to repurchase one. At number 4, Roland U220. This is painful to talk about. It's a single rack space sound module. I purchased it for 2 reasons, and neither of them are really good reasons. 1, it was $36.10, and 2, it was not working. At the time, I was on a kind of a repair binge, trying to improve my skills taking care of my gear to save a buck, and for personal satisfaction. I like being challenged. I fixed it in about 10 minutes with no parts necessary. Unfortunately, then I found a couple of rows of dots of the display were missing. I spent another $30 just to replace the display. I was more interested in, could I fix it, rather than was it going to be a serious addition to my musical arsenal. It was like a stray puppy that needed some TLC, and to that degree, I was successful. I sold it to a guy in Miami for around $50, and I think shipping was about $30, so a net loss of about $45 or something like that. At least it's not in a landfill. Number 3, Roland DJ70. This is a stripped down Roland S760 with a small 37-note keyboard. I was hoping to get a cheap S760 with a keyboard that I could also use to play S550 sounds. Unfortunately, the one I purchased on eBay was in a lot worse condition than had been represented. There are 2 versions, and I think mine was the Mark II. Also, the unit is mostly plastic and not well made. I resold it pretty quickly with a true representation of its condition and still got all my money back. Number 2, TC Helicon Voice One. This is a single rack vocal harmony generating unit, but you can use it for other sources. I had wanted one of these units for a long time. Software 20 years ago wasn't very good at generating realistic sounding vocal harmonies, and software today still isn't that great at generating realistic harmonies. Luckily, it arrived not working and I returned it. Now I have a TC Helicon Voice Live rack, which I absolutely love. It's looped into my DAW. Number 1, Roland MC808. This is a rhythm composer and sound module in a tabletop package. I actually liked this unit when I got it, and I still think it's a decent unit. It's relatively well made, has expansion options, and a decent sound set. The problem was that Native Instruments Contact and sample libraries were on an upswing. The MC808 came out in 2006. This is 4 years after Contact was released, and by 2006, Contact was making a dent in hardware sales. It's a nice unit. It was simply the wrong purchase for me. It was shortly thereafter that I started purchasing Contact sample libraries at a rapid rate. When I buy hardware, I tend to hold on to it for a while, or forever. Generally, I've made good buying decisions, especially in the last decade. Feel free to share any buyer's remorse stories that you have in the comments. Hopefully I haven't wasted your time. Take care, and I'll be back in another episode soon.